Okay, I'm ready, Megan.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, and we're live. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Thursday, April 28th, 2022. It is 8:10 a.m. We apologize. This was supposed to start at 8, but we had some technical issues. This is a hybrid meeting. We're in Building 1, Room 280. To join, you may call 360-252-9020, PIN number 1234. I am the chair of the board, Carolina Mejia, Vice Chair Ty Mincer in the boardroom. Next to him is Commissioner Gary Edwards, County Manager Ramiro Chavez, and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. Today we will be discussing the Budget Amendment 1. We are joined by our financial team's staff from our financial team. So with that, do I hand it off to Robin or
Right away.
Right off to Robin. Yes, good morning, commissioners. And Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager. And I'm pleased to be with you this morning to do the first look at the budget amendment, the first budget amendment for this biennium. The intent for this morning is to walk you through the requests. You have a packet. We are not looking for decisions this morning. We'll come back to you next week asking for decisions on what you'd like to move forward with, at which time we will prepare the appropriate documents for the action that you will take in late May to amend the budget. But today, like I said, it's an introduction to everything that folks have asked for. I'll also give you a first look at how the forecast is shaping up. It is not ready for publication yet because we still are waiting for financial plans. Those are due until tomorrow. We are waiting on property tax. We'll have a much better look at that next week because it's not due until Monday. And then I do have an early look at sales tax based on numbers that I pulled off of the Department of Revenue site last night. So let's start with a quick look at the forecast. And I am going to try to share my screen.
Madam Chair, while Robin's hooking up there.
Go ahead, sir.
I do want to ask or see how this fits. I appreciate the fact that we don't have some of that information. But to me, when we start into this budget process, I believe we ought to have the forecast right from the start. And the reason for that is we're going to be expected to make some decisions on information that is presented to us now, but we don't know what's coming next week, for an example. And so anything we might be thinking this week is probably premature because we don't know the forecast as to what's coming. So I just think it's very important that we know what we have to deal with before we even start thinking about what we're gonna entertain this or that, whatever it is. So I just wonder if this isn't premature. Not that, I don't know. I know you got a game plan, but I just don't see how we can even start the process without knowing all the facts of the game.
Right. So I agree that you need the most current forecast information. I apologize that I cannot give that to you without additional financial information. It is a point in time type thing. But I also don't want to jam you with information coming at the last minute to have to make a decision, which is why there are a lot of First Amendment requests. And I think it's important to give the board an opportunity to see what they are and ask questions about them so that you have some time to think about them. We could certainly delay this, but I will have forecast information before you are asked to make any decisions.
I agree with you, Commissioner. You need all that information that you need to make an informed decision, and that is our responsibility. So today's session is for introduce all the requests. We're not asking today for you to make a decision. So we are not asking the board to make a decision today. It's just introducing all the requests for you to start forming an opinion. Robin is gonna come back with a full forecast as you requested. Before we ask you to make a decision, hopefully at that time you have all that information in place.
So we're not gonna be in a position that we're gonna debate, whether this is a priority or not, or a high priority, low priority.
Not
This
today.
is just strictly gonna be information from you to us about things that you've received about requests and such.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So that you can start to think about,
Okay.
what you're.
I noticed when I went through this last night, there was like one of the presentations, it was all zeros, and I was trying to figure out what the heck's that all about? It wasn't even $1 on the sheet.
So
You
you're
know.
going to find there's a lot of technical adjustments.
Right,
Okay.
tons of it is
There's a
technical.
lot of technical adjustments. The majority of those is, just have zeros.
Okay, well, I won't hold it up anymore then. That was just a concern. Thank you, ma'am.
No, thank you, and I appreciate your comments. So what you see on the screen here, and you don't have a copy of this.
Okay, this we don't have.
Correct.
Okay.
Is a very preliminary look. I need to fill in a few more blanks, but this is where we landed last year. And this column right here that I'm highlighting in gray, that's last year. And I'm very pleased to report that we ended last year about $2 million higher in fund balance than the forecast you saw at the time. Yeah, it's that little number right there. At the time you approved the budget in December. So it's about,
I guess I'd ask, can you at least hit print so we can look at it when we get
I
done or
I
something?
can print this, but I'm gonna put a great big watermark that says draft across it.
Oh, that's
because
okay,
it's-
but I just,
Yeah,
You want a print
I
copy?
know you
I
like
like a
paper.
print copy to
Yeah.
review. My brain doesn't even work unless it's got something, a sheet to go down and, okay?
Tactical.
I know it's an 8 o'clock meeting with a lot of numbers.
Well, which is a challenge to me,
No,
whether it
to all
was
of
2 in
us.
the afternoon.
To all of us, I have an extra strong copy.
Okay, I don't know how my seatmates feel about that, but I just think it gives us a better handle on things, is all.
I agree. I do not disagree with you, but again, this is
So-
really preliminary information.
So what you would like to see is this, it's just that you're saying that this is still gonna be tweaked.
Yes,
That's
the
right.
numbers will be
But
different.
I bet
when
it
we
gives
get
us
them
a
next
rough
week, and
idea of
that's
where we're
why
at
I
possibly.
hesitate.
Well, I was thinking about this morning too, and I was just gonna make sure that we got this, just a sense, cause I just wanted to have a general sense.
You want a copy of this?
I would appreciate a print
Can
copy.
you send it to the printer?
I mean,
I can.
even here, look it up, you can get up, you can go, we can take a look at it, but by the time I get back here.
What is today is April, I haven't even had time to change the labels and things
Just-
like that.
Put draft all across it or something. it's
Yep.
fine.
Okay, so, no, that's really what I wanted to know, is just, based on where we sit right now, is it A little better, a little worse, or exactly the same as what we thought when we made
Sounds
decisions
a little
in
better.
December?
Better.
Sounds like a little better, and that's helpful.
Because we just closed all the finance sheets 4 weeks ago with financial services.
Yeah, the year
Yeah.
just closed,
closed.
people haven't done the first quarter financial plans yet.
One thing I did notice going through here, there seemed to be quite a bit of, we ordered it, but we didn't get it. And,
There's some of that.
you know, that must have been pretty common because of the international national supply chain issue, I suppose.
That is, one of the reasons for that.
But not all, but
Yeah,
yes.
some, yeah.
No, those aren't even the right, printing parameters. This is.
This is not even hot off the press, this hasn't got into the oven yet.
This is rolling out the dough before we even get the biplane, right?
Yeah,
You know, so if you can send a PDF to Commissioner Mejia.
yeah, but just hang tight.
Okay, I can see it from here. Any notes, I'll just write them on my sheet and then I can circle back once I have a paper form.
Okay, go ahead. Or the one copy. Yeah, print, and so you'll have this hot off the printer, and Commissioner Mejia will make sure you get a copy. So basically, as I was saying, as it brings, is the position that we ended in last year is almost $2 million higher than the forecast that you had. Revenue came in a little higher than we had expected, and the reversion amounts were significantly more than had been estimated. And that is after we made $1 million deposit to the rainy day fund. So you now have $3 million in your rainy day fund. So that is an excellent position to be in, and this is what.
I have a question about that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we had 2 million in the rainy day fund. And we put another million in the rainy day fund?
I did transfer another $1 million to the rainy day fund, under the authority of the resolution that was passed that established the rainy day fund, that directed either the county manager or the assistant county manager, based on a formula that the board approved in that resolution, to transfer up to $1 million based on certain criteria as part of the fiscal year close.
Okay.
So,
Until we get to 5, right?
until I think I topped it out at 5. Yeah, I think I topped it out at 5.
It was based, the formula is including excess of revenue that we forecast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excess sales tax, and these are the things we had last year, excess sales tax and excess timber revenue above specified amounts. So we had those, I made that transfer. We still reverted over $8 million in fund balance or underspending of appropriation. And your fund balance is higher than anticipated at the time you adopted the budget. And now I want to show the graph, if I can figure out how to make the graph bigger.
And that's 38 million is what the, that's,
And the ending
and
fund
the ending
balance.
fund balance, right? Okay.
Right.
And when the board made decisions last year on the budget was about 36. 36.
Oh, here we go. Do not know why.
Let me just ask, Robin's, tied up doing that. But, okay, so we're starting off $2 million more. So how does that project out with these other numbers?
Just
If we spent that, I would guess those numbers would remain the same. But maybe if we didn't spend it or did something different, then.
just like this.
Just like that.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. I'll try to be quieter.
Oh, no, I'm so happy to be able to answer your question when
Okay.
you ask it. So this is how it projects out. Again, this forecast is not cooked, so these are very preliminary numbers. But given where we ended last year, this is where we're at, and you may recall that this is just a slightly better position in the out years than at the time you passed the budget. So it's looking pretty good right now. The other thing I'm gonna hand you now, because I did print this out, is the sales tax report.
Thank you.
Can you print that one out?
Yeah.
I won't,
I,
I'm aware it's.
can I do that after the
Yeah.
meeting? Thank you. So I will print a copy of this for you out as well after the meeting. Just to show the difference. If I can pull up the right. This is what it looked like at the time you adopted the budget. So
Wait,
here's what it looked like then. And with extremely preliminary numbers, this is what it looks like now.
It's not shifting on the screen.
yeah, there's no change.
You're kidding.
Because you're showing the screen as it is fixed on one screen.
It's all on the same screen on my, I only have one screen on this computer.
It'd be fun to have those two screens you just showed us sitting right here, just like this.
This
One
would.
here and one here.
Okay.
That'd be
That's-
interesting. Let's put it that way. I don't know if this is the right term for fun.
All right, so there you go. There's where it was at the time you adopted the budget. Now, here's where it's at. Again,
And
preliminary
Okay,
numbers.
Commissioner Mentor asked if you could get that early. Can we have both those so we can have them sitting here at some point?
Absolutely, we'll
Okay.
have a comparison for you.
Okay.
Yes, all of that
That's
next
the one I
week when I ask you to start making decisions. So,
Then if you notice, the difference obviously was in here, a little bit more,
yep,
and here. Because on the previous, it was below the
Right.
target of
So
18 million.
it carries up.
So So this is a little bit what you see.
That's why I'm a little hesitant to share these numbers. I've not had enough time to work with this forecast. All right, so turning to sales tax.
Madam Chair, are you tracking? Okay, thank you.
Sales tax pulled up, so
Yeah, I'm gonna try to share that screen. Yep. So here's the early look at sales tax, and what you see out here, way out here, is the first 3 months of the sales tax revenue for 2022, which is not as robust as we had hoped. In the first 3 months, we were averaging a little under 5% for the 3 months combined compared to the first 3 months in.
Is this where you are over here?
Yep, all the way over there.
Right there, okay.
Yep. So those first 3 months combined averaged a little under 5% compared to the first 3 months of 2021. However, I just last night pulled the April numbers, and what you will see next week when I update this report is that April came in at 19.2% growth over April of last year, which pushes our first 4-month average up to 7%. So it's still not the average of 10% that we had in the forecast.
So here we'd be
But it
kind
is-
of like right there, basically, right?
No, it'd be up.
It would be above the 10% line?
April is,
10%.
yeah.
Here's the
See,
line.
this is
Yeah.
a month to month.
Yeah, so
we'll be
So
at
that
the-
very next
8%
month,
is right there.
As an average.
yeah, as a 4-month average, but what you see there is each month. So the month of April is a little over 19%. So that
Oh,
next
so
bar
that's
is
gonna
gonna
be
be
up
up
here.
there,
Just the
yeah,
monthly.
The monthly one,
yes,
okay. But the quarterly one won't quite be there,
that's correct.
okay.
So,
And
sales
how many
tax
dollars was that, just for an example, did we bring in?
in the month of April,
When we bring in 19%, for an example, what does that equate to in dollars?
so the total month of revenue, is $1,975,064. That is the April sales tax revenue,
1 million, so almost two.
nearly $2 million
For the month
in the
of
month
April.
of April.
When you say 19%, you're talking about 19% more than April of 2021.
Correct. See, this is year over year growth.
Yeah, I'm just pointing that out for folks that are trying to track.
Yep, and if you look at this, the bottom chart, you'll see that there was, if you think of it as a linear trend line, you'll see that 19 and 20 and 21 especially, had a pretty upward track, and the first few months, it's hard to tell with this kind of a graph, but the first few months of this year are still growing, just not as at a steep rate as they did in 21, and we expected that. That was factored into the forecast. We knew that kind of growth would not continue.
April of 2021, according to this, was a pretty good month.
Pretty good month,
And to beat
yes.
that by 19% is pretty astounding.
It is.
Because you have to sort of see, it's like relative, you know, like there's these ones that go way up, it's because previous year were terrible. And
That's right.
so that you can't really, you have to sort
Yeah.
of look at, you know, the pair to sort of see the story.
But 2021 in April was not a bad month.
Oh,
I
it was
mean,
a great month.
yeah, So we continue on this upward trend, just not as, certainly not as much as last year. No one expected it to be growing at the same rate as last year. Not quite as high at this point in time as we had hoped, but still, we're in a very good position.
When you come to,
Go
Let me
ahead.
just finish. The 10% you say is, was that what we projected
Over the year,
over
for the whole year.
2022?
Yes.
That's the assumption, when you approve the budget, yes.
Right,
Okay, and then that was, if I remember right, then you stepped at some point you stepped that down to 5%
At 2023.
back next year,
next year.
it goes down to
Okay, so
5.
this year we'd like to see that 10% just in terms of, holding firm with our decision-making that was
Right,
done, okay.
so a little under 10, but
So the
not
first
a
quarter,
lot.
2022 is below that assumption.
Low,
Right.
but in the second quarter, starting off with the bang.
do you have a comparison that we could look at that is, as the recession started? Because I happen to think we're going into a recession. And it would show us maybe the amount of decline, if you will, of what we had kind of hoped for, I guess. I don't know if you'd call that a projection or not, but
I can certainly do a graph
You
that
know what- you kinda
compares
know what-
where we're
you know what I'm
at to
talking
where we
about.
thought we'd be on average.
yeah, and
Yes.
then how does that look if in fact we go into this
If
recession?
it continues to play out, we can certainly
Okay,
show that. I'm glad you brought up the recession, because I was at a conference. Thank you for sending me to the Conference of County Administrators. Our state economist, Dr. Steve Lurch, spoke at that conference, and we asked him, what is the potential, especially given the high inflation rate, that we're going into a recession in the near term, this year or next year.
Mhm.
And he said that that is a hotly debated item among economists nationwide.
It is, I know.
Yep, hotly debated right now, and here's why. The normal trigger, if you will, for a recession is layoffs, scarcity of jobs, and money circulating. And we don't have any of those things right now.
We've got too much money circulating.
There's a lot of money
Too
circulating
many jobs.
and too many jobs.
I know.
Nobody's getting laid off.
But this is gonna be a very unusual chain of events that take place, and I don't predict this happening, I mean, I don't know much, I'm
Right.
not high on the scale, I'm just following my checkbook, so to speak. And it, to me, looks like by the end of this year, we're gonna be in a recession, because I don't see interest rates changing, they're gonna keep going. I think wholesale is already over 12%, so that's crazy, and that's gonna reflect back to retail. We're gonna get over 10% here.
Right.
I think about 3 months myself, but.
So
Can you repeat
In-
what you said? It's,
Yes.
recession's usually triggered.
usually triggered
Layoffs.
by layoffs, fewer jobs, and scarcity of money. And we don't have any of those things.
I'll
He
just,
said consumer confidence is taking a hit because of the high inflation, but even that appears to be bouncing back a bit. That it's more affected by the introduction of new COVID variants, that is a factor in the current economic situation. And that inflation, let's see, what did he say about inflation?
while you're looking that up, I was at the EDC meeting yesterday. And they did a very good presentation about workforce activities and the fact that we've never had this situation where younger, older people took early retirements and are not coming back. Younger folks, I think it was from 18 to 22 or whatever it was, that younger age group is coming out and trying to move forward, but the seniors that would normally be working another 5 or 8 years decided, a lot of them decided to take early retirement as the work situation changed, and they're not coming back yet. Although the driver on that to maybe help them decide to come back is the inflationary situation, that their money that they thought they could live on is now not the purchasing power. You know, it's down about 10%.
So
That's the
people will
reality.
start to come back into the
And so
workforce.
some are gonna come back.
Right.
I don't know, it was a good presentation. I'd encourage you to take a look at it if it's made available.
It was a PowerPoint?
Yeah, and it's gonna be sent out.
Oh, that'll be good.
Michael
Oh, yeah.
Cade's got it,
Yeah,
We'd love
that'll be
to
good.
see that.
so.
Dr. Lurch talked about how December sales taxes were weak. But they think that's because people did their holiday shopping early. You know, we were all told that
Can't
we
get
wouldn't
stuff.
be able to get stuff, so
Yeah.
a lot of people reacted by doing their shopping early.
Gene was the
But,
one who gave that presentation. Gene.
He said that employment is almost back to pre-pandemic levels, but we see huge variances across the different sectors. So that's something that they're trying to pay attention to that's quite different. Inflation, he said, is being driven by commodity prices. They had expected it to peak earlier this year and start to drop. That's not happening. That forecast had been done prior to the Ukraine invasion. So they do expect the inflation to continue to go up. And they said personal income is anticipated to continue to grow. But yeah, he said the possibility of a recession, that mainly it's driven by layoffs, job scarcity, and scarcity of money in the, but none of that is happening. So if we do see a recession, they are not including a recession in the Washington State forecast in the next 2 years.
I just saw that reported, they don't have it.
Yeah, no, he said that they're not. And,
I hope you're right.
well, I hope he's right.
Yeah, well, I think,
Yeah,
I hope so.
everybody's
there's
hoping.
there's a lot of unknowns out
Yeah.
there.
It's gonna
Someone
develop.
asked about if the housing bubble's gonna burst. And the, Dr. Lurch reported that the mortgage rates would need to hit 6%, to affect the housing prices that we see, that right now they're just going up. And that is part of why REIT is expected to continue to come in strong, but again, not growing at the same rates that it had been.
The housing market is totally different than it was back in 2000.
Crazy, yeah.
Because in 2008 was the financial elements in which somebody accessed loans, and here is just the lack of inventory.
Right,
And-
Right.
And that is totally different.
it is different,
Yeah.
it's a very different time.
If you wanna know why I'm so cautious, I lived through the Jimmy Carter years and I got stuck with an 18% interest rate. on
My
a
first house was over 12%.
Yeah, but mine went from a construction loan to a conversion, which they wouldn't go back on. So I got stuck with the construction loan interest rate, 18%.
Yeah,
Couldn't sell it, couldn't
kids
rent
today
it,
couldn't
couldn't
can't
do
rent
anything
it.
to it. So I'm just pointing, so am I a little more cautious than others? Probably.
All right, so the page that's on the screen right now is the flip side of the sales tax forecast. Again, this is through March, and we'll have April numbers coming in. What this is a breakdown of the top 10 revenue sources for sales tax. And as usual, retail, trade, and construction are at the top of the heap. And those are the two sectors that are softening compared to revenue last year. So Whitney is doing a deeper dive on those two, retail in particular. We're not surprised that construction's slowing down because even though we have a scarcity of properties, we see less permits being issued. So this is not a surprising trend in construction, but we're doing a deeper dive on retail to see if there's anything that jumps out as a particular area of concern. On, let's see, man, I just thought of something and I wish I'd said it when I thought it. Because, destination sales tax.
That's the big driver.
Yeah, well, what Dr. Lurch said, because someone in the room asked about that, is that online sales were growing before the recession hit. He said that not the recession, but the pandemic.
Pandemic, sure.
So we saw growth in online sales before the pandemic. He said maybe a little of the growth that we saw during the pandemic was because people were ordering from home and getting stuff mail order, but they don't think that that was a big factor. They do, however, think that those habits are going to continue into the future. So
I think he's right about that. You mentioned for the sales tax on building, I mean, that is a big piece. REIT is a big piece of it, but so is when that package is delivered into rural America. See, we didn't used to get that, and now we get it, and that is the big plus for us. That's why it's so important that we encourage more permits to be issued in rural America.
So
I know that flies in the face of some philosophies, but it's the reality.
That started in 2012 or earlier.
But the growth on housing and the lack of inventory and the big push, I mean, that's what's really pushing that up right now. Wasn't that one of your top items?
Construction is a top item, but your comment that we see big growth because it's now being delivered.
Well, now, whenever it started, and it just continues, I mean, it's a reflection.
It was around 2012, the construction revenue was tied to an address rather than where you ordered the goods. But
It's gonna continue to grow.
It does have a growth,
Yeah.
but it is slowing down.
I don't even think
Anyway,
it was reported
yeah.
accurately way back in 12. I think businesses have gotten more adept to doing it right,
Right.
and it adds up.
So there's a quick overview of how the forecast is shaping up. And basically, at this point in time, you are in a good position. So with that, I am going to turn
Have you done this
to,
yet?
which
This is the
one?
one you gave us.
That is the financial plan for the coroner, I think.
Yeah, I had a single sheet there
Yeah.
for that too.
Oh, we're
We'll
gonna
get to that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was just gonna,
we'll get
just
to that
confirming
later.
that we didn't go over that yet.
Yep, nope, not yet.
Got it.
All right, so let's start going through the items that were in your packet. And we're gonna start with the page that says capital reappropriation. Capital reappropriation is items where a capital project has started. And it is a project that the board had already approved. And you may recall that your capital budget is approved by project regardless of timing. So the county has authority, once the board approves the budget, that money can be used to any year when it's needed. But we do want to you know, in the interest of transparency, we want the board to know that we are moving money between years. But for anything on the reappropriation list, the total budget for the project is not changing. We're just shifting it between years in an amount that the board had already authorized. So on this list, I'm not gonna hit all of them, but you see the central services is rolling money forward for a whole list of projects. You see the real estate excise tax, we did not spend this 2.3 million last year on the atrium project. We got a slower start than we thought we would, so we're just pushing that forward into this year.
Where are you at 2.3? I'm at 4.2.
Did I say 2.3? I apologize, I meant 4.3.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, so and you see that's lines 2 and 3, we're just bringing that forward. Line 4 is road construction in progress. Again, just bringing items forward, and then you see a whole list of items related to solid waste, parks and trails, storm water projects. And on the back, again, these are all water and sewer utility projects, some of them tied to ARPA, but I just want to emphasize again that these are projects that the board approved in an amount that the board approved, and the money is simply shifting between years. So I'd be happy to answer questions about any of these items.
Well, you know, obviously the thing I'm gonna be watching is the atrium funding.
Right, right. The total amount not changed, just the years. Moving on then to grants. The grant list is new unanticipated grants that we had no idea were coming at the time the budget was adopted. If you go to page 5, at the bottom line, you see that the amount of revenue in total exceeds the amount of expenditures in both years. If it didn't work that way, it wouldn't be on the grant page. So all of these are new awards that the various offices and departments have been successfully awarded. We have funding for the second year of the Safe Babies grant, and this will be used to offset some spending out of the general fund, so actually this has a beneficial effect. Superior Court also received funding for the Uniform Guardianship Act grant, and that will cover legal, court visitor, and interpreter costs in Superior Court. We have additional revenue coming in from Superior Court for interpreters. In District Court, there is funding to put video in Chandler Court in the courtrooms, and that funding is coming from the Administrative Office of the Courts.
I have just a quick question on that.
Sure.
Are we doing district court over at Chandler as well
Yes.
as Superior
It's
Court?
one
Or
courtroom district and one county
Okay.
court.
Yep.
Okay,
We
Thank
put 2 courtrooms in to
Okay.
achieve social distancing. The next item, number 5, is again, revenue coming in from interpreter or to cover interpreter services. This one's in District Court. Number 6, the prosecutor has what is called a Smart Prosecution Grant. He would have to explain to you what all is covered in that, but it is in part to identify and address the presence of racial disparity within the criminal justice system. Then from the prosecuting attorney, there is an award from the Nisqually tribe of $5,000. You have the boating grant in the sheriff's office.
This whole packet is all equals out.
Oh, yeah,
When it is-
everything.
Yeah.
Everything,
Is there something in here that does not? I didn't
Nope.
see it.
not a single thing
Okay,
doesn't,
that's what I thought.
Well, it's
Add
a
up.
little, it was a little bit up because the bottom line is total revenue is 957,000
And
and
910.
910, so
Right.
expenditures
Well,
of-
we have a
I-
little more revenue than expenditures,
didn't
not
s-
the other way. Right,
Oh, I do see.
so there is a
Okay.
wide variety of grants for a large number of things.
I'm good with it myself.
Great. So, questions about grant awards?
If we looked at, let's say, line 17,
Yeah?
can you explain that one? There's no expenditure, like all the other ones have.
Right, so, Public Works was successful in securing $400,000 that will be used toward the Yelm Highway project. The board already appropriated the money necessary to do that project. So this will offset part of the previously appropriated costs.
So it will be a higher,
Ending fund balance on the road
fund,
fund.
ended fund balance. The
Right.
road fund will have a little bit higher fund balance.
Right,
Okay, but that's a $400,000 tick in the, oh, I see, roads, 600 to 200,
Yeah.
okay, I got you. All
So
right.
the number that I listed was just general fund.
Yeah, okay, that's,
I'm sorry.
that's good.
all right. Commissioner Mejia, are you good with the grant packet? Okay, moving on to technical and transfer packet. This one is substantial. The first item, and it covers like the first 2 pages, is the credit card rebate distribution. And you may recall that the county, when we use the county credit card, we get a rebate. And I think it's, well, Maggie will have to tell us. I want to say it's 1%, but Maggie would have to tell us exactly what the percentage is. In any case, we strongly encourage offices and departments to use the credit card when you can, because we get this money back. And the policy that the board has approved is that the rebate becomes available to the office and department a year after we receive it. So what this action is to increase each office and department's ability to spend on one-time items this small amount of savings they achieve by using their credit card.
That's their reward process.
It is the reward for using the credit card as the county has asked them to. So all of these amounts, $5 is going to the Olympic View Sewer Fund. You know, there's not a lot you could do with $5, but it is an incentive to use the credit card. Some of these are substantial. So you see law enforcement is receiving $6,461. That's a pretty big rebate. The auditor's office, over $5,000. These are, and Medic One, over $14,000. So it can really add up. Public health, $17,000. These rebates can really add up, and we strongly encourage offices and
Public
departments.
Works is the winner.
Public Works, when you add them all
Add
up,
them all up.
yeah. Yes, they are. So the first two pages are just the credit card rebate distribution. Then we go to page 3, the item, line number 42 is, we found in review, a lot of the technical items are just, we found errors in the budget. And I wanna say that, in a budget, a $300 million, almost $400 million budget, that has thousands and thousands of line items, there are going to be errors. So the First Amendment is an opportunity to correct the errors that we found in the original budget. And the first one of those is line 42. District Court had double booked revenue for traffic infraction penalties. They had it showed up on 2 different lines. It really only should have been entered once. So we are taking out that $10,000 of double counted revenue. Line 43, the prosecutor's office receives a Stop Violence Against Women training grant. That grant amount is reduced. So you see both the revenue and the expenditures in both years reduced to reflect the lower grant amount. On line 44, the Sheriff's Law Enforcement Office has a new copier lease. These are technical. We adjust the revenue and the expenditures in accordance with governmental accounting rules. And the same is true of line 45, it's copier lease. Line 46, the coroner, this is a technical adjustment. It is funding for prepayments as part of the budget. The coroner received funding for the purchase of a power lift gurney system. And by the way, I think that the coroner has expressed his appreciation for the equipment that the board approved. It is making a difference in his office. But accounting does not allow for prepayments of certain things. So line 46 is simply an adjustment to address accounting rules related to equipment purchase. Line 47 is the revenue from the employee parking lot is roughly $14,000 a year. A few years ago, we moved that revenue to a central services M&O fund because that's the fund that pays to maintain the parking lot. It can only be used to pay to maintain the parking lot. It should not be deposited into general fund. We thought we fixed that a few years ago, but for some reason, on review, it showed up in Questica again. So we need to take that out. Line 48, there is a $115,000 expenditure that was booked in non-departmental that should have been tagged as one time, so that will be removed. I'm not sure exactly what it was for, but it needs to come out. And line 49 is the clerk. Now, we put this in technical. We could move it to a different category if you'd like, but here's what's happening with this item. This is related to the Blake determination. And in the legislative budget for the state of Washington, a few things happen. The Blake LFOs will be paid by the state. The county will not pay them in the future. We'll just send.
What do you give them, a voucher or something and they go?
No, once there's a court order for repayment, we send that order to the administrator of the courts and they will pay it. So the county won't even be paying it for LFOs.
Let me ask you something on that. Because, did that happen because it was determined that they weren't having as many requests for payment as they thought?
It happened because the state is being sued about who is responsible for making the payments.
Okay, is
So
that a
the
county?
state is taking
Was that an
over.
action that the Association of Counties took?
They are involved in that. I
Okay.
think it was King County. So counties are not liable for payment of the LFOs, which then leads to an accounting rule. General government accounting rule says that if the county is not liable for the payment, that we need to book it in a completely different way. And in that way, it does not impact your budget. So what you see in lines 49 and 50 is all of the revenue that the board anticipated to cover LFOs is taken out because we won't get that revenue. And all of the expenditures that we assume for the LFOs is also taken out. And you may recall at the time you adopted the budget, we only booked the amount of revenue we knew we were gonna get. But we booked the entire estimate of the LFOs. So this is we're taking out about 900,000 in revenue, but we're taking out 6 million in LFO expenditures. This is going to have a very positive effect on your ending fund balance.
Is that why we got that 2 million extra in the ending fund?
No, that was last year. This is going to affect this year.
22 and 23.
Yeah.
That goes back to, I think your forecast on this was probably is materializing in a way.
So that kind of helps us on the rainy day fund achievement, or?
That helps you on whatever the board needs to do.
And then the fund balance, and conversations
Right.
are coming up.
And
Not at this amendment, but later in the.
But it's almost like
Right.
one-time money.
it is like one-time money, the expenditures, but it improves your ending fund balance so that the fact that we're a little under on our sales tax revenue is gonna be more than made up by this single action.
And Robin, what just walked through on this, it does not include those
It does
assumptions.
not include the
So-
amendments yet.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, because she couldn't take an action and improve this without having the board taking a formal action.
Improve these
Right.
ranges.
So there's that, the staff cannot be presumptuous as to what the board would like to do.
So you'll see the what ifs, we'll be able to go through a what if scenario when I ask you to make decisions about this amendment, but I'm just saying that this single item will put you in an even better position than you already are in. And we knew this.
Because and it's two aspects, right? Like, this is who paid. Like, at first, we didn't know how much we were even talking about.
Right.
And then we also weren't sure at the beginning, the state was even, like, we thought we might get stuck paying all this.
That's right.
And we
That's
had to
exactly
prepare
right.
for the worst case scenario that we're gonna pay it all. And we
That's
don't know
right.
what, and we're gonna be worst case scenario on the volume. So the volume is coming down And the county's liability for it is being lifted, so it's kind of a double thumbs up on this.
That's exactly right.
As we move on with this, kind of in the background, I'm hoping that we'll recognize inflation, and when it comes to retention and recruitment, realize that anytime you don't have success in those areas, it ends up costing you a lot more money to hire somebody and train somebody and all that. So I think we should look ahead and having that as a kind of a backdrop to what the real inflation is as we move forward.
So we have
For our
scheduled in late May a work session where I've retooled the forecast model so that we can have an interactive discussion on salary and other incentives. So the board can say, what if we do a 3% COLA in this year and a 5% that year and a $5,000 bonus for this group? You can do that and see what the impact is. And so we've set that up, I think May 25th, Romero, is what we were talking about. So we are thinking ahead, knowing that you need to be able to have that conversation and see what the impact to the future will be in having that. So that's been teed up. All right, so back to the list. The rest of the technical adjustments are fairly small. They're small things. We needed to, the code that the leaf buyout was booked under had to be shifted in a couple of departments. So that takes us all the way through line 58. There are a few net zero items that are just adjustments to coding. That's when you see zero money. I'm looking for the bigger items. There's a park and trail technical adjustment that removes the park impact fees from the Let's Connect. It removes both the park impact fees and the expenditure, the revenue and the expenditure.
What was that really, what's that mean? I mean, what's that about?
The project that they were booked for is completed, and this budget authority should have been removed at the time the budget was done. It was just overlooked.
And where
So
will
they're
that,
taking it out now.
where will it go, or?
It's just, it's not gonna materialize.
There's no actual money there?
Right, it's just an accounting entry. That's why it's technical. So the rest of them are very small entries. And the bottom line impact to the general fund is positive to the tune of about $6 million.
And that's mainly because of the lake.
It is all about the blade. So, moving on to the maintenance.
Can I ask a question?
You may recall that.
Commissioner, McKee, any questions on that?
Yes, can you hear me?
So sorry, yes.
We couldn't hear you.
Okay, my question is in regards to line item 71, which it says Veterans Social Services, correct interfund allocations. Can you?
So in Public Health and Social Services, they have allocated, they allocate their internal costs amongst the different funds that they administer. And they needed to adjust that because the allocation was not as accurate as it should have been.
Okay,
So if you add up all of those lines, they net to 0.
okay, thank you.
All right, maintenance. You will recall that part of the First Amendment every year is to adjust the ending fund balance. And the reason that we do that is at the time we create the budget, every fund administrator does their best guess on how much the ending fund balance will be as of January 1. And every forecast is wrong the day you print it. So once we close the fiscal year, we do this technical adjustment to change the beginning fund balance to what it really ended up being. So that is the entire just about all of the first 4 pages of this. You don't see the dollar amount entered yet because at the time we printed this, the auditor had not entered the numbers yet. So we're waiting on that, but I know that the increase in general fund is almost $2 million. That's the 2 million up that you saw when we started the discussion today.
And I did see 750 on Medic 1, what's that?
That is not part of the fund adjustment. That is, so there are a couple items that are maintenance level. So at the very bottom on page 4, there is a central services item that is an increase for the rising cost of fuel. We're gonna pay out about $187,000 more in fuel than we thought we would when the budget was created.
And that's just for central services?
That is, central services, remember, buys the fuel for the whole county.
For the whole
So
county.
that's Public Works and the sheriff are the 2 biggest users, but the
That's the,
assessor and the,
Y'all are-
yeah,
yeah,
all the
y'all are,
offices and
different or
departments.
something.
That's part of the operations of the ER&R.
okay.
So $187,000 more in the cost of fuel. And then page 5 is unanticipated increase in operating costs in Medic 1. This is mainly tied to the negotiations for contracts with the Medic 1 service providers.
The first, for the most part, is a placeholder to allow that expenditure authority, because we know we're gonna be having increases on their contracts. We're getting to the point of negotiating those contracts and there's gonna be an increase,
So
so,
we pay 80% of whatever's negotiated, right?
yeah.
Right.
And what makes it more complicated is because some of those contracts are negotiated by the individual cities. So it is a little bit of, yeah.
But they do share information back and forth as they're doing that.
Yeah, and it's a good coordination, but it's still, you know, it creates.
Yeah. It's outside our control.
For the most part.
Okay, so those are the only 2 items of substance on this list. The rest is just the fund balance adjustment. And those numbers will be filled in when the auditor's office has them.
Let me ask you one thing about that before you put that sheet away. On your justification, and that's under the Medic 1, they're talking about 7.9 inflation at this time. When was that put together? When was this actually done? And I'm on page 5 of 8.
I think that.
Third paragraph.
Yeah, that was related to Fire District 3. And they already signed that contract.
Right. And they
And,
based it on 7.9. I'm just curious when they did that.
I can't remember when they signed that contract, but it was earlier in the year.
Cause it might be more than that now, I think. I think it's up around 8.5.
Yeah, but the contract is signed and
Okay,
sealed and
I
delivered.
just wondered. Okay.
Madam Chair, any questions?
All right, moving on to the operating carry forward. These are items that the board approved, and for whatever reason, were not completed in 2021, but were in the works. So, none of these items are general fund. The first one is for historic preservation. This is all of the various grants that the board awarded that were not completed by the people that they were awarded to. So 23,000 that was not spent this year will be billed to us, or not spent last year will be billed to us this year because the grantees are working on their projects. Item number 2, 648,000 in conservation futures. This again is awards that the board had made where the easement projects had not been secured yet. So again, items in the works in conservation futures. Item number 3 is equipment that the board had approved for last year. These are vehicles and large equipment. They were ordered, but they did not come in. This happens every year in ER&R. So the amount of appropriation authority is rolled forward. And one of the items in the resolution that you will approve is the amendment of the equipment list that goes along with item 3. Item number 4 is from Medic One Emergency Services. This is approved money from the ARPA Recovery Fund to increase payments for high probability units that are responding to calls with potential cases of COVID. So they didn't spend the money last year, they're asking for the authority to spend it this year.
Related to that, we're in the middle of a 90-day trial period working with both hospitals to make sure that the medic units are not waiting, idling while they're being received in the emergency room. So it appears to be working successfully. I think there is a commitment by both Capital Medical Center as well as Providence to expedite that process so we don't feel this backup. And that's really what it was, is the board authorized to hire additional staff to deal with the consequences of that backup, just idling and waiting for patients to be received. My hope is really after the 90-day period could be just a part of the business. And so that's what we're working on. There's no perspective on that.
All right, moving to item 5 on page 2. This is a project. It's many studies that the board approved for road projects that were not completed that last year. And so both the expenditure and a chunk of the revenue rolls over, and the revenue is from various grants that are being received that support these studies. Item number 6 is a stormwater utility study. And item number 7 is funding for the Capitol Lakes and Deschutes Estuary We continue to be billed for the county's share of the study group. And those are the carry forward items. Questions about those? Again, no general fund impact on those. However, for the rollovers, there is general fund impact. And I'm gonna go through this list, but first I will say that part of the approach for the amendments that the board approved, that is not like other years, is that, if an office or department ordered something or had a one-time something, activity, that they were unable to complete by the end of 2021, they are able to request that the board take the unspent money and roll it into 2022, so that they complete whatever was started and not finished last year. And this is the first time, other than some non-general fund items, this is the first time that the board has allowed this in the general fund. So a lot of people came forward asking for this ability. And this was part of the compromise, you'll remember, when we went to a biennial budget, but not what some people call a true biennial budget. You got this rollover aspect. So this is the first time we're doing this, and we saw some very interesting things. The auditor is requesting $154,000 be rolled over for items that were not received related to election supplies. And there were significant orders for things like envelopes and ballots. So they didn't get them last year, they didn't spend this money, they're asking to spend it this year.
Can we just stop right here?
Yeah.
So if you just look at this, it looks like we're spending $154,000 more dollars, but in fact, we didn't spend. So is there an adjustment somewhere that, I mean, how does this get its account?
It's part of the 2 million.
Reversion.
Yeah,
The higher reversion,
the higher reversion than we thought there would be.
but we're letting them spend, then essentially just roll their reversion.
They are asking to roll it forward.
So that'll make the reversion just a little less.
In effect, yeah, your ending fund balance this year won't be as high as if we didn't do this. That's the trade-off. And you may recall that we tried to put some sideboards around this. You cannot roll forward any savings due to interfund costs, and you cannot roll forward any savings from personnel costs.
Salary savings.
Yep, no salary and benefit savings.
And I think it's only one of these items that is requested.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is there any requests that
Didn't follow the rules.
parameters.
There is one, and we'll get to that, but in just a moment. But most of these, it's other items, and budget staff did go back and verify that there were savings in the non-personnel categories that qualified for rolling it over. So the first one is from the auditor related to election supplies. The second one in juvenile court, they ordered furniture that was supposed to have arrived by December, and it didn't get here until January, and it was delayed due to global shipping delays, so that's $3,000. Sheriff Law Enforcement ordered a list of items. You see it here. These were ordered but not received. And this is the one item that is not in accordance with the rules, because when you look back at the sheriff's budget at the close of last year, they had overspent their equipment and other items, I'm gonna call it the other category, that was overspent, and they want to roll over salary savings to cover these equipment costs.
Well, they'd already ordered this stuff and
Yeah.
got it in?
And had it arrived by the end of December, they could have covered it at their bottom line.
Yeah.
But they're asking to roll forward salary under expenditures to cover these costs for items that did not arrive by the end of the year. And again, that is, explicitly one
Are
of
you
the
asking for a
things that the
decision on
board,
that
no,
now?
I'm not asking for a decision now, I'm just stating what it is.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to line item 4, unless there are questions. The sheriff's corrections, here are the items that were not received in corrections: mattresses, body armor, wrestling mats, and ammunition. It was not received by the end of the year, $32,000, and they did have the savings in the other categories in corrections. Moving to page 2, line number 5, in the coroner's office. The coroner ordered some of the equipment that the board authorized, but it was not received. And so the coroner is asking to roll forward a little over $12,000 for these items. And again, we verified that there was the budget last year for these items that was not spent and is available to roll over. Item number 6, in non-departmental, we had wanted to do a strategic plan that got delayed due to lack of capacity. So we are asking to roll over $80,000 that was not spent last year for this project. Item number 7, in central services, this one is substantial. This is equipment, again, that was ordered but not received in the amount of $1.4 million. And again, your resolution will include update of the equipment list to authorize these items.
Can I go back to line 6?
Sure.
I don't remember any discussion of a strategic plan update. Is that periodic or?
We should be doing it every 3 years.
I haven't had any touching of a strategic plan since I've been on the board.
It was scheduled to be updated in 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Right.
But it was included in 2021 and just didn't have the time. But I think it is timely now that hopefully we can start ramping down on the pandemic to start looking strategically.
And what does this money go to, a consultant or what, how is?
A consultant to help us now update the strategic
And is
plan.
that what it cost last time we did a strategic plan?
Last time it was about 60.
I thought it was a little more.
Yeah.
I'd have to, we'll look that up, how much we paid last time.
What's the end result? What do we end up with for that expenditure?
On the
What-
strategic plan.
Yeah, I know it, but I mean, do we get a new book, a new review? What do you end up with? Paragraph?
When we engage when we developed the county strategic plan, we had a series of sessions with all the elected officials, directors.
I was there.
And
Put the
also,
dot over
yeah,
there.
so we're gonna be embarking on the same, but in this case, we will not be starting from scratch. We'll take what is the approved strategic plan and determine what strategies are working, what are not, and any opportunity that we need to move forward.
I know that's not what this discussion's about, but is this required by Growth Management Act or some kind of state law?
No.
Because I'll be honest, I don't like our strategic plan, and I don't really want to spend, to say that we're gonna protect the environment, that doesn't tell anybody anything. So unless we're gonna do something more targeted and substantial, which I think is what the comprehensive plan it really does, I don't see the point of it. But that's a topic for different different,
that's why I'm asking that question about what we're ending up with. So I'm not far away, but I guess we're gonna discuss this later.
Yeah, we can have a more robust
Yeah, we can
conversation.
certainly have a more conversation, but that I think is the board who provides that strategy. And that's the purpose of the strategic plan. Is no, with all respect, it's not just land use. It's everything that we do in terms of law and justice, and there is very specific strategies on the strategic plan that some offices of the department have already implemented.
okay, well, somebody can lay out for me what they think the value is and how it provides added value. And maybe it's because I wasn't participant in the development strategic plan. I don't really like the way it's structured, but maybe we can fix it, make it better.
Yeah, and in a way, the board will be in the driver's seat if that is the step that the board wants to take.
All right, going down the line, 8, Emergency Management Council. We're going to buy a trailer for wildlife response, and that purchase was put on hold. So they are asking to
When
roll
you said wildlife, you meant wildfire.
wildfire, I did.
Okay, you're just throwing
I
it.
want a wildlife trailer.
I just thought maybe every once in a while you throw that in and see if we're paying attention.
Big cats, yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So, yeah, wildfire response. So they didn't buy it last year, they're asking to have the authority rolled over to this year.
And somehow they lease that out and get revenue back, don't they?
They
It
do.
seems like
Yes, they
it ends
do.
up being a revenue stream
And
at
use
some
that to
point.
DNR.
Yeah, so I know it.
Money from the state?
It doesn't hurt anything to do it because we don't really lose anything in the end.
Nope. And it's coming out of the Emergency Management Council Fund, not general fund.
Okay.
Then you've got, Public Works, has a number of items that is really all the same thing. It is the asset management program. It's I wanna say it's a study. It's a condition assessment, on the assets, owned by both the roads and the utilities. So the lines going, almost to the end are just these assessments and the purchase of software, by Public Works. So the total impact on the general fund, if the board should approve all of the items, is $338,000, and then the rest of the impact is to other funds, and the fund balance is available to do all of these things. So, questions about the rollover? The last packet is the lightest one. It is policy items. The first item, line 1, is the auditor is requesting authority to spend interest that was earned on grant proceeds. It must be spent on the grant program. The short description here doesn't say exactly what the grant was, but we can't spend it any other way. So they're asking for this $3,000, less than $3,000, to be able to spend their grant revenue.
But they've got it in interest rate.
Yes, they do.
I'd like to know what that is, just to.
The grant,
Yeah.
we'll find out. We'll have that information
So
for
it
you.
at least says something there.
Yep.
It doesn't say anything.
Item number 2 is the historic preservation. This is the kiosk at the rack. that was requested by the Historic Commission. So $6,000 and it'll come out of the Historic Preservation Fund. Line item 3 is the Victim Advocate Program. It's coming out of the Victim Advocate Fund. We are losing revenue from the Stop Violence Against Women grant. And the reason that this is on policy and not the grant list is the prosecutor's office is requesting that even though we're losing this revenue, they continue to be able to make expenditures for the position that had been supported by this revenue. Now, we looked at this fund and I didn't print the financial plan for this fund, but money has been increasing in this fund, and while this fund used to have a problem maintaining a fund balance, it now has a substantial fund balance of almost $500,000.
Why is,
We asked that question, and the reason is 2 years ago, state legislation changed to enable the county to retain, instead of a percentage, I think we used to get 30% of the fees that were collected. We now retain 100% of the fees collected. We're following up with the prosecutor's office. There's a plan or a report that has to be approved by the state Department of Labor and Industries. So we're ensuring that that plan got approved as required. But as long as the plan was approved, we get to retain all the money, and they have not been spending it. So we've got substantial new revenue that is not going to stop, and they're asking to be able to keep the FTE, which is reasonable.
Sounds good to me.
Yep. Line number 4 is from the sheriff. This is funding to cover flood costs, and this goes with another line that you're gonna see later on that books the revenue that we receive from the Department of Ecology to cover the cost of the floods. So the line items are separated simply
But the
because,
sheriff will get paid through that.
Yep.
Sort of.
so it won't,
Yep.
this will not have an effect on the general?
that's correct, this is
Okay.
So
gonna be covered.
it will be a transaction on the general fund. The general fund will pay, but get reimbursed by the
Yeah,
grant.
it'll get reimbursed. You don't see the revenue reflected here, but it's reflected on another line. The next item, line 5, is the sheriff is requesting funding for extra hires to perform background checks. That's lines 5 and 7. And if I understand this request, they're having to do more background checks than they had anticipated due to turnover and vacancies. And they're asking for additional funding to be able to pay for that. Line number 6, also from the sheriff, this is funding for an armored car pickup of daily deposits. And what the sheriff has expressed is that once the treasurer moves to the atrium, the treasurer's office won't be handy for the sheriff's staff to just walk deposits to the treasurer. And they're going to need an armored car to pick up the deposits, and that's gonna cost roughly $7,000 a year. So they've asked for half of this year and all of
We hope we can coordinate with the clerk's office as well on this, because there's the additional stop, that's what we pay.
Why does the sheriff have to do an armored car? What's that about?
So every day an armored car comes and receives all the
Yeah, but it's
cash.
a private armored car, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So when we moved to the 3000 Pacific, and that stop of the armored car is covered by the treasurer.
Okay,
So since the sheriff's office and the clerk's office receive cash on their daily transactions, they literally walk to the treasurer's office, put their cash, and then they give it to the armored car. Moving to the 3000 Pacific, the armored car needs to have an additional stop to receive that cash here.
Why does that come out of the sheriff's budget? I'm just curious.
That's what they're asking for, additional revenue.
Yeah, but why does it have to, why do they have to even do that?
Because they.
I mean, I know there's a state law, within 24 hours, you have to make your deposit.
So-
All county
Who
government.
would you like to pay for
who would
the
like to pay?
armored car service? Someone's gotta pay. Who would you like to make that payment?
Either way, it's gonna come from the general fund.
No way around that.
No.
Okay. I don't know.
So this is where Romero's saying we should, any office or department that remains on the campus should coordinate, so there's a single
It's a
armored car run,
Single stop.
and we can keep the costs down.
You know, that comes back, I mean, I know it's a small item if you think about it, but it comes back to what was brought up about maintaining offices at the county courthouse. And not for a central location. I don't know how the statute reads, but I did see that. So this is a good example, although it's not very much money, but it's a good example of the inconvenience caused by the separation. So I don't know if we're gonna have, are we gonna plan on maintaining an office here? Maybe the treasurer can maintain an office and they can just give the money to him.
But it
He
would.
put it in his
You're
pocket.
not planning on that.
No, they're not planning, but even if they plan to have an office here, it's still gonna be an issue where the transactions occurred. And it will
Public's
occur
gonna go to the
at the
meeting.
3000 Pacific, so it's still gonna be another stop.
I'm still not sure that's gonna happen, but a whole nother conversation.
Okay, well, let's keep going then. The next item, number 8. We did 7. 8 is for the coroner. They are asking in 2023 to add equipment to the ER&R replacement fund and to start now. And that could be delayed to the midterm adjustment, but they've put the request in now.
I thought there was other ER&R chunks that you went through in other sheets about saying there's gonna be a list of equipment and we're gonna be adding
Those
that.
are not to add to the ER&R savings account. Those are to buy equipment that didn't come, that was authorized last year. That's an expenditure side, not a savings. Talk about the details more. The next item is the big item on the list, and this is for the coroner. And it's why you have the coroner's financial plan. The coroner has not been able to attract a candidate for the forensic,
Pathologist.
the pathologist that the board approved. So he is continuing to have to pay for autopsies, and the number of autopsies that are being done continues to increase. And so what you see on the financial plan is that on the supplies, it's the services line. The services line is anticipated at this point in time to be overspent by $451,000.
And this is actually a direct reflection of fentanyl and opioid overdoses. That's the big driver.
You'd have to have that discussion with the coroner about what's pushing deaths and
That's-
autopsies
That's
up,
what's pushing. He'll be able to tell you about it at some point.
right?
But we're way up on overdose deaths.
So there's going to be a little bit of savings. The other thing that's going on in the coroner's office, and the reason that you don't see substantial salary savings, is the coroner is staffed with exactly enough FTEs to cover a 24/7 shift, and just enough room that if one person is on vacation or takes a day off or calls out sick, they're still able to cover. But what the coroner has been experiencing is, I think he said he's got a vacancy, and he's got, he had 2 people out sick at the same time, and he's having to call in a lot of overtime. So the salary savings that we should have seen for not filling the pathologist position are being eaten up in overtime and extra help in the coroner's office. And now when you look starting in April, you'll see that the salary amounts and the benefit amounts pop back up to what they would be if you filled the position. So I anticipate there will be a little more salary savings than the 15,000 shown here. But not enough to cover 450,000 in over expenditures.
How many FTEs now?
I think he's got like seven or 8 FTEs in this office. It's very small. So in the discussion with the coroner, I advised him to put in a request for the full 450,000. You also see 120,000 in revenue because more autopsies results in more reimbursement from the state, but the state doesn't cover the full cost. And what I told the coroner is that it is highly likely, and I would be recommending to the board to fund a large chunk of the 450, not the entire 450. And that we would watch how this goes, and in the amendment at the end of the year, you would ensure that his budget is whole and fund however much we're off. So
With a little closer amount to what
yeah,
actually
when we
expenditures
know
occur.
better exactly how much, but I think you should add at least 300,000 to the coroner's budget.
I would hope if we do that, that we would add verbiage to that resolution or however it's gonna take place to assure him and his employees that that is the full intention of the board if we do it.
Right, to
And
make
I'm
him
going
whole.
back in history a long ways. I was told when I was sheriff, oh yeah, we're gonna do this later on. And then the next thing I knew, well, you dummy, you didn't manage your budget right, you know? And I'd hate to see that happen to the coroner.
No, and I think the board has really a history of making sure that you fulfill the obligation of the coroner because he has a lot of unexpected expenditures.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just throwing that out there. Make sure we put that in there. I think we need to treat the coroner, I think the coroner's office is kind of a underappreciated stepchild. And we should take better care of it. That's just my view.
You could
Because
certainly,
when you don't, you end up with employee issues. So
right,
that's just where I'm at.
you could certainly choose to fund the full 450 at this time.
As long as the verbiage is in there, that's all I care about.
Right, but
As long as the
I
verbiage
think
is
at the end of the year, you'll have a much clearer picture of how much he really needs. And he's been talking with Romero and Maria about hiring a
Recruiter.
recruitment specialist to try to fill that position. But the conversation you may end up having with him is having to increase the salary offering for the position.
I think
So
that's
it's
very
complicated.
possible.
Complicated like so many things. So page 3 of this, line number 10 is 35,000 for the meat packing plan study. This is what you've been talking about, partnering with Pierce County. And line number 11 is $10,000 for the Chehalis Basin Partnership that Commissioner Mansur, you had brought to the table. Line 12 is from the ER&R fund. It's $135,000 for this is different equipment that would be added to, this is equipment that we would purchase now instead of later, because there are 2 vehicles that got, that were in accidents and they're total losses. So we have to buy them now instead of waiting to the year when they would have been purchased. But we do have money available in the fund to be able to cover them. So
Where's the utilities division? What's that?
that's in Public Works. So one accident was a sheriff employee and the other was a Public Works employee. And I'm not saying who was at fault, I don't know who was at fault in these accidents, but we need to pay.
Robin, I want to do a time check really quick. It is 9:56.
What fund would that come out of?
That's coming out of ER&R.
Hold on a second, I saw Commissioner Mejia's lips moving, but we couldn't hear her, so I'm wondering if there's a technical.
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay, now.
That we can.
Okay, I just wanted to do a time check really quick.
Right, we've got just a few more items to go. I think most of the rest are non-controversial, I hope. So, gonna move through them quickly. Thank you for that. Line number 13 is funding in CPED for WSU. It comes with revenue. Line number 14 is the Parks Fund. It is a platform at the Deschutes Falls Park. It comes with revenue from the park impact fees. And REIT are the 2 ways they're paying for that. Line number 17 is $1 million from the road fund for flood response. That is not being paid by an ecology grant. But we should be able to claim at least some of it from FEMA. We're not booking the revenue now because we don't know how much FEMA will approve.
Why not all of them from FEMA?
Because FEMA is fickle and they only pay 75%. So we won't get it all from FEMA.
We might get 750.
We might, yeah, we might.
And there was a declaration declared by their.
Yes, there was, which is why we might get some from FEMA.
Everybody.
So that opened up the opportunity to claim FEMA reimbursement.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, and the last item is the housing additional funding coming in from the new tax that the board approved. This is the estimated revenue. In 2022, they are asking to hire an employee. And in 2023, you will start seeing the projects approved under this funding. But at first, the revenue will just go into the
It'll be passed through.
Yep, housing fund, yep, eventually. So that is the budget amendment.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep, yes, ma'am.
Okay, with the commissioners check-in that's supposed to start at 10, I want to go ahead and give the commissioners a 10-minute break. So we will start at 10 a.m. That way we can go get coffee or use the restroom or whatever we need.
Thank
So
you. And the commissioners check-in is not live stream, but we will have a phone available.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.